Good evening, Clarendon Fine Art, and welcome to the Clarendon Fine Art live official Instagram. This evening, I'm joining you live from our Mayfair gallery, our flagship gallery here in Mayfair, and you guys are going to come with me as I jet across the channel, and we're going to go live to the south of France. Thank goodness, because I missed out on my trip this year. So I'm going to take you guys with me to the south of France, where we're going to go and see and have a catch up with the very fabulous Mike Rumsby. So he is going to take us on a bit of a tour of his studio. He's got a restaurant there. He's sort of nestled in the vineyards near Saint-Emilion, Bordeaux. In fact, total paradise. So I'm really looking forward for him to join us. I know that he should be joining us live very shortly. We do have his catalogue going live straight away after this live Insta feed. And there are some purely magnificent work that he's been working on throughout lockdown and over the last few months. So I'm going to go live across to the south of France, and I'm waiting for Mike to join us, and I know he is quite excited about this actually, having sort of been working very hard, but kind of been, I don't know, kind of isolated in the south of France. I could think of nothing better. However, we're going to go over there, jet over there, and join him in a bit of sun and hopefully have a glass of bread in the sunshine in Bordeaux. So he's going to join me live. Like I said, the whole feed, after the live feed this evening, we will also have, with the live feed this evening, we will also have this on social platforms shortly. So I'm waiting for the man himself to join me. But I think, in fact, I can see, now that's not Mike, but I can see a studio. Okay, guys, so this is where we're going to join Mike. Now, I know that we are currently outside his studio. This is his home, his studio, his restaurant, and this is very exciting. I actually feel like I'm kind of there now. Now I feel happy. Now we're here. So I'm going to give it a bit of a knock on the door there on reception. I love it. Is he there? Hey, Mr. Mike Rumsby, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you very well, mate.
Do you know, I'm actually very well. Can you hear me okay, Mike? Because I know.
Yeah, perfect.
Can you? Brilliant. I wasn't sure if you could hear me, you know, nestled in the vineyards of Saint-Emilion, Bordeaux.
No. We're all right. We're still sober here. It's okay.
Oh, you're still okay. Very glad to hear it. Listen, I'm sorry I can't be there. I know the plan was I was going to come and join you in the south of France and do this live feed. However, I'm in the next best place in Mayfair. Babe, this is really exciting because we're in your studio. You've also got your restaurant here. You've got two studios there, one for summer, one for winter. Take us round, because I've got a few hundred people watching us now, and I want them to see your life.
With great pleasure. Yeah, you've just come into the reception of our business, which is called the 1500. And it's a kind of boutique-style accommodation restaurant that Lee, my husband, and I set up about 5 years ago. But what really happens here, apart from cooking and brilliant guests and stuff, is that it's where I paint and where I work. And as you say, we've got two studios here. I've got my winter studio. I'll take you up and have a look if you want. And then I've got a summer studio, which obviously I've been using for the last sort of 3 or 4 months, outside in the potager. But really, the whole house we use, all the walls we use as a kind of gallery. So everywhere that you go, everywhere that our guests go, they're surrounded by my art, which I hope is a good thing for them. But they tend to like it. So shall I take you up to the studio in the attic?
I'd love to.
Okay, I'm with me.
So your studio in the attic. I'm gonna chat to you, Mike, as you go around your house, if that's all right, not too annoying. And thank you to Lee, who's the cameraman today. Thank you very much. We will get to see you at the end. Your studio that you're taking us up to at the moment. So this is your winter studio?
Correct. Yeah. So there's 3 floors to the house. It's a really old house. It dates from like the 12th century part of it, and then the rest is like 15th century. So there's this crazy old attic, which at some point will get renovated. But for the last 10 years that we've had this house, this has been really where I spend my days painting away. up
It
here.
looks beautiful.
But it gets a bit hot in the summer, so that's why I move outside. And you'll see later when we go outside that it's quite nice down there. I'm just looking onto the vines. So most of the stuff that I do here is I make all of my own stretchers for my paintings, and the wood that I've got here I brought back on my last trip to Portugal because I found the most brilliant carpenter who's got this little shed in this tiny village in Portugal. He makes all of my frames out of really good quality wood. So I bring them back here, stretch them up, and then I guess the whole house is a bit like, I was thinking about it earlier, it's a bit like a kind of luggage carousel at an airport where things happen up here and get produced and they eventually end up in different rooms around the house or in one of the main gallery spaces. And sometimes they stay there forever and they find their forever home somewhere else. Sometimes they come back up here and I work on them. That can be up to 3 years later. There's some stuff that you've got, I think, in Dover Street that I probably started about 3 or 4 years ago. But
I have.
brought up to date.
Yeah, I have, Mike. I've got one behind me. Actually, my favourite one, the blue tree.
The big blue tree.
The big blue tree. But actually, do you know, I was just thinking. Actually, you were saying that you've got this sort of this process there. So they either stay in your house, or we come and bombard you, and then put them in my van, and I bring them back all the way to.
Like you did like you did a few weeks ago. With fabulous Phil.
But yeah, exactly. So this is fantastic. So obviously, I mean, for you, obviously you've got some up here that, like you said, you worked on for 3 years. Is that because you start a painting and you just come back to it, or because of sort of inspiration, or?
I think it's part of that process is the result of my painting process, which is that for me, I paint. People often say, how long does it take to paint a picture? And my response is that it's not just the amount of time I spend putting paint on a canvas can be quite limited, but it's really the time that I spend thinking about it and sitting back and looking at it. And the way that I paint is that I am constantly 24/7, or in my waking hours, sometimes in my sleeping hours as well, taking little microscopic images in my brain of what I see around me. And I'm a huge fan of nature and studying nature as we go around in the car, or as I'm walking or cycling around here, or wherever else I might be traveling. And I take those images back to the studio and I'll reproduce them, but forgetting about perspective and bending things a bit and not worrying about so much about the planes of field. And that's really how I paint. So I'm creating this kind of collage of images that have been sort of regurgitated in my brain, sometimes over weeks, sometimes over years. So that's why I say that often I'll look at a painting and it's been hanging on a wall somewhere in a room here for perhaps a few months, and I'll bring it back up here.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the beauty. I mean, Mike, Lucy, early in the week, director of our 20th century. Now, she did the most amazing weekly wisdom on your work. And she
did. It was brilliant.
Yeah, she contextualised your work within the sort of 20th century movements of expressionism, impressionism, sort of due to your exploration of like colour, light, movement. Would you agree with that analysis?
Yeah, I thought it was great. It was fascinating for me to see, you know, to sort of sit back and have a rather objective view on my work from obviously from a third party. And I thought she hit it on the head, really. And she talked about the idea of spontaneity and fluidity and the idea of chance. So I do leave a lot to chance. And if we get a chance to go down to the summer studio in the garden, I'll show you something that I started yesterday, which is about half an hour into the process. And I'll create shapes. This is really an example of that process as well, but it's a bit further down the line, where I'll create a general composition and general shapes that I have in my mind about the layout of the landscape, because my work is 99.9% landscape based. But then I'll just go with it and I'll play with it, and I'll spend hours up here or down in the garden painting, and I'll lose myself in it completely. And I'll add color. There's a sort of a subconsciousness of the colors I'm using and the shades that I'm using, that sort of thing. But really the process is something that just runs away from me, and I know when I feel that it's right to finish.
No, absolutely. No, I think that's fantastic. Well, yeah, do. I mean, I know I'll probably end up in your summer studio, won't you? So yeah, take me around. We want to go everywhere, Mike, only because I'm not there.
We'll keep
And
a couple.
I love Mayfair.
We'll keep a couple
Right
of places
now,
quiet.
I'm going to meet you in the South France. So you have to take us everywhere.
Right, come down here. Do you want to come to the bedroom, Ray?
Say again?
Do you want to come to the bedroom?
Let's do it.
Come here. This is one of our guest rooms, and I was saying that the paintings kind of go around the house, and there are a few that we've just sort of always kept back that Lee likes or I like, and this one here is a painting called Up that I did in 2013, and I think Lucy mentioned in her Weekly Wisdom that my painting in sort of 7-8 years ago was a lot darker than it is now. I use a lot bolder colors. But this is an interesting example of work that I did in my sort of younger days, so to speak, where I'm using a lot of liquid paint, a lot of water in the paint.
Watery. It's a lot more than now, isn't it?
Yeah, and I'll let it drip and I'll paint within that. But this is an interesting example of where I perhaps first started to explore this idea of the different sort of planes of depth of field and blurring the lines between what's in the foreground and what's in the background. So, for example, on this, some people think it's a mountain, some people think it's clouds. People are not quite sure what the green is. It's some sort of foliage. Is it the jungle? Is it the vineyards?
I like
that really was probably the starting point of what got me to the sort of work and the style that I'm doing now.
Yeah, I love it. Fantastic.
And then
so get that one. So what else have you got in your Oh, you see this I love. This is funny because these
are orchids. So when
I tried to pull this one, but I couldn't get it off your wall. It's like you bolted it on. You're keeping that one there. Talk about this, Mike, because this is earlier. This is from Paris, isn't it?
This is a triptych I did. So when I used to work for a big beauty company in Paris, and I spent many years in a tiny little apartment just by the Louvre. So there was huge inspiration and a lot to live up to. But in this tiny apartment, I was painting these huge canvases with sort of household paint and whatever I had. And it's interesting when I look back at these because they really show how I felt, which was this need to express myself, having been really sort of tied up in this very kind of, heavy weight on my shoulder of a job. And I love being able to express myself with paint and throwing it around. And I'm sure the stains are still on the parquet in that apartment. So
I love it. I love this. I love this piece. Actually, Mike, this is quite important, and you can talk me around, but a lot of people may know about this or may not. I mean, obviously, you're super creative, but you were 15 years. I mean, you were headhunted from Belgium. You were headhunted by L'Oreal, possibly one of the most creative, in the world, massive brand, for sort of the global communications director for like the whole of L'Oreal. And I'm not going to do the L'Oreal advert like we've practiced, but no joking. And but the whole L'Oreal thing. But the thing was with L'Oreal, I mean, big job, huge responsibility, but actually that was very, structured, organized. You had to be. Whereas your work, almost for me, a bit like the subconscious, is so almost the total opposite. It's so spontaneous. Would you say that's sort of kind of because maybe you were like 15 years, like quite rigorous and structured, or?
Yes, I think so. I had my moments of being a bit unstructured during that period as well, but I was, it was very rigorous, and it's true. I mean, it was a very big job, and there was a lot of stress involved. But I think that you're right, Ray. I think that a lot of the work that I have done subsequently is this kind of inner need to really express how I felt and what was going on inside me, and that's what came out in little sort of vignettes throughout the course of my kind of corporate career. But I mean, gosh, how lucky am I? I've managed to forge a life where I can do what I love in a country that I love. I studied French and art at university, and here I am as an artist living the dream in France. And it's, you know, I'm very grateful for having been able to do that. So
you are literally living the dream. And now you're going to take us more in your dream through that door.
yeah,
right?
we'll go down
back down.
Another staircase. Are you there?
I got you.
Yeah, okay.
I'm here.
Yeah, we can come back through towards the front of the house, and so if we look at, we were talking there about 2013, and this is also from 2013, and it's called rather uncleverly Red Mullet, because that's what it is. But again, it's an example of the way that I used to paint using a lot of water, and the water that I threw on the canvas here was on raw canvas. And it was actually, a lot of it was the water, these aqueous colors here, and some of these oranges were the water from the tubs that I had my brushes in, that I was cleaning the brushes in. So
really?
I created this kind of like almost this ocean on the canvas, flat on the ground, on the grass. And then drew in with pencil the shapes of these fish that I also had laying in front of me. It was like sort of feeding the 10,000 that night. And yeah, create this sort of, I rather like that painting still, actually. I look at it and
I really like it.
Yeah, I can appreciate it myself, which is not always the case with everything I do.
No, I like it.
And then one more sort of, perhaps one more blast from the past.
The blast from the past, we like those. Where are we heading now?
So we're now in what we call the library, because it's got a few books in it. So so it's a little living room at the front of the house, and this is I used to paint a lot of polo horses and players, but not in this style at all. There's a lot of my older stuff on my website, which was much more watered down and more sort of atmospheric. But again, this is back from 2014, and I wanted to continue painting polo horses because I found that very exciting, the movement, the way that the player and the horse sort of interact. But this is me getting a little bit bolder with these sort of black outlines and a little bit more abstract, perhaps, in the way that I was expressing that particular subject matter. So it was, again, part of a journey that I was going on to get to where I am now.
Actually, Mike, interestingly, the polo, when you were based out in Dubai, I mean, the polo, I mean, that's actually how we met, wasn't it? And I know, and I will give, can't believe I'm doing that, but we will have to give a little shout out to Kat, your sister, because actually it was Kat, that's how I met you, wasn't it? I remember being in her home, London, and literally hanging out, and then I literally turned round into like the orangery bit, and I just saw the most magnificent paintings of echo, the movement, and I kind of forgot what I was doing, and I'm like, oh my God, who's that guy? And here we are.
Yeah, that's right. No, she has. Yeah, she has one of the really early ones, actually, which is great.
She does.
Her and Stephen also have quite a few paintings down in Portugal, and no, she's a great sister and a great fan. So
she is. She's your biggest fan. Biggest fan. Right, where are we going? Where are we going?
Okay, so we're in the dining hall here, and this is just a couple of examples of, you know, I think everybody, you know, not least artists, really were able to use lockdown as an extraordinary experience. And we had 3 months of very strict lockdown here in France. And there were quite a few paintings, obviously, that I was able to do during that period. But this one in particular is something that was a little bit, well, very autobiographical. It's the back of the house. It's a little bit self-indulgent, to be honest. But it's a painting that I really enjoyed doing, and I felt quite emotionally attached to whilst I was working on it. And it's very much about storytelling and about how I felt. And this was at the beginning of lockdown, where we really didn't know what was happening to the world or in the world or where we were all going. So it was very much about picking on symbols that exist within the house and looking to the future and the fact that fruit will come and things will happen. Because we actually closed our whole business for the season. So it was very quiet around here. And then often I'll take little elements of what I know is inside a building and I'll put them like this little sort of antler head. And I'll put them outside and express to the, or try to communicate to the viewer what's going on inside. And there's a little ode to Lee because he insists on using the dryer, whereas I always insist on hanging washing out on the line. So, so there's all these little symbols.
American, yeah? Very American, Lee.
Exactly, yeah. And then this one, Ray, is this is a little bit later on in lockdown, and it's a painting that I started before all of this happened. But again, it's an example of something that I continue to work on, and it's called Le Grand Monde, simply because I guess, like a lot of people, I used my time to revisit a lot of things from my life, from my student days, friends that I hadn't spoken to for a long time. And this was a book that I read as a French student, and it was my interpretation of that story, which is a beautiful story about finding love. And this was at the end, and this is more hopeful, more perhaps lively, more positive interpretation of what was going on.
Love the colour. I love the colour. It's sort of going back to that, again, what Lucy was talking about with that sort of expressionist work. I really love it.
I like trees.
Yes, we like that. We like
Speaking of which.
Speaking of which.
This is painted, again, sort of in the studio rather than plein air, but it's, there's a walk in Portugal on the Rio Formosa that I really love, and there are these fantastic trees, these sort of pine trees that are very low on the beach or just before the beach and the sand dunes, and there's a lot of water there, and I love being able to interpret using the light that's down there in southern Europe is incredible. So using that light to interpret the colours of the trees, which were, I saw cobalt blues rather than green pines, and I quite like the effect that came out of that with the moonlight and the composition.
That's a bit of a beauty, actually, Mike. I'm not sure I saw that on your wall. So next time I'm there with my van,
shall I put your name on it?
Mental note. Mental note. Now, where are we now? Is this the gallery?
So this is we're back to where you came in. Actually, this is the main. This is our sort of seminar breakfast room in the house, and this is we wanted to use this specifically as a dedicated gallery space. And these paintings here that Lee's showing you are they really show what I love most. There are two subjects that really influence me. One around here is the vineyards, obviously, and so the painting behind you there is a painting that I did recently of the village, and this is the chateau opposite us right here. We live on the street that runs between the chateau and us there, and so I'm very influenced by the vines and the rows of vines that are surrounding us here, but also by water, because I grew up in a little village right on the beach in Suffolk, looking out to the North Sea. So water has always been a constant force in my life, and really, really influenced my appreciation of nature and my desire to bring that to the canvas. So again, vines.
You can see that, Mike, actually, massively. You can massively see that, because even like you were saying earlier, like your skies in this painting here, the sky, I mean, again, it sort of has that watery, that whole water sort of swept feel, and the colours as well. The palette is really beautiful.
Yeah, I love these aqua colours, and I love sky, the different colours like phthalo blues and cobalts and aquas, and then these sort of pinks and reds that complement that. Yeah. And the way that I will structure my canvas to start with is these rather sort of geometrical shapes and circles, and I see my canvas almost like a sort of music sheet where I'm sort of going from one side to the other, which is why I like big canvases, because it gives me more space to work.
Yes.
And I really love the play that happens as you go along.
Absolutely. That was going to be my next question, because I have to say, when we're hanging your work, like I love, obviously, I'm one of your biggest fans. I'm way up there with Kat.
Thank you.
But obviously, you know, we get loads of inquiries and then we sell your work, and then I go, oh my gosh. And I look at the size of it, and there's little me. So I obviously get Phil on board, and we go to the client's home where I have to hire this huge van with Tony. Then we go across. They're massive. You work on big, not all, but you work on superb canvases, which I have to say, on our clients' walls, whether they be in London or all over the country, they have such wall presence, Mike. I mean, they're big, but they're fun. I mean, they're absolutely fantastic.
I just love painting. Yeah, I love painting. It's my need to express myself and to paint. I mean, they're not all huge. There's some tiny little ones there, but this is actually quite a nice example of my attempt to try to recreate the style that I use on a sort of 3-meter canvas like that onto a tiny little 30-centimeter square canvas.
Yeah, I like maybe. I don't see any of those. I didn't see any of those on my recent collection. Quite large.
They're still there. So yeah, it's an ongoing experimentation really in terms of the size and the way that I paint. Let me take you around I'll take you to the next part of the gallery before we get out to the studio if we've got time, have we?
We absolutely have all the time in the world. Yep, okay. I'm so there.
Okay, so we go out to the back of the house again.
Is that Farrah Fawcett I just
It is. It's a Lee story.
It's a Lee story. Lee, we'll come on to that later over a glass of red.
Do you want to see the first painting I ever did as a student that my lovely parents were so proud of? They framed it in a very grand frame.
I do.
It's in this room here.
That's all right.
So this is when I was. This was when I was. I decided that I wanted to be like Turner. So.
Oh, now hold on 1 second, because the signal. I'm just going to wait for I can see you, but the signal's a little bit blurry. So okay. I'm just going to wait but we are on the live feed. We've totally mastered this now. We're on the live feed, so we appreciate the signal.
We can come back out of here, it's fine.
Oh, I wanted to see that, Turner. Maybe we'll come back to the Turner.
Okay.
Kind of.
Let's come.
Yeah,
are we back? Are we back together?
You are? Yeah, we're getting there. Perfect. Yeah. That's better.
Okay.
That's better. Spot on.
So let's go down to the. Actually, no. We can show you the little gallery. The other gallery. There's another gallery in the restaurant, which we can show you if you're interested.
Oh, this is so beautiful. Look.
Fresh air.
Fresh air. Evening southern French sun.
A little bit of Texas.
A little bit.
Which is where Lee's from.
Thanks to Lee.
This is a gallery space as well. So this is another lockdown piece here, which
beautiful. So is this in the restaurant then? Is this where, when you have guests, they dine in this restaurant?
Yeah, but it's open to. I mean, it's closed at the moment, but it's open to the public as well. So yeah, people come in the door here that's open, and this is where they are, and the terrace is out there. So this is a local market at a little village called Isishiak, and again, it's quite representative of the way that I paint. For 2 reasons. A, because there's a blurring of the subject matter. So what are people, what are flower petals, what are pots, what are umbrella stands, etc., etc. But also it's an example of a piece of work that has been hanging here for a while. And the more I look at it, the more I realize that I actually want to add more to it. So I will do another wave of paint on this, probably to lighten it up and to bring more sort of sunlight into it, because I find it a little bit flat. But I worked on this last year. So again, nothing is, I won't let anything go either to you or to anywhere unless I'm 100% convinced that it's ready to go. So the ones you've got, you'll be glad to know that I was 100% convinced that they were ready to go.
Yeah, I got that when you didn't let the other 10 that I wanted on the van. I mastered that bit.
They'll be ready for you soon.
Better that way. Better that way. So where are we heading now? Oh.
So we're going to go down to we're going to just go across the garden to my summer studio.
Wow.
Well, hopefully there's a chilled bottle of rosé waiting.
Yeah, you knew I was coming.
Exactly. So this is, we do a lot of art painting retreats here. In fact, we have one starting on Sunday evening for the week. And so we use this space for dining and for doing life drawing classes and things like that. And then we use part of the chateau opposite as a studio as well. This
is so beautiful, and I have to say thank you to Lee for just panning over to the pool just then.
Well,
we're feeling it.
Most of this is Lee's work as well. So
thanks, Lee.
So this is my little. This is the potager, or the vegetable garden, and this is where Lee bought me a shed about 3 years ago. So this is where I work in the summer, not inside the shed, but I keep my stuff in it if you want to have a little peek.
I'd love to have a peek. That looks nothing like my shed.
So I have all my paints in here, and so there's more going on in here right now, obviously, than in the winter studio.
Yeah. So this is where you spend. So most of your days, obviously, in the summer months, which, let's face it, in the south of France, you have about 335 days of the year.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Tough.
So and I'm out here, and to be honest, I'm out here with my painting shorts on and working, and I'm very, very fortunate. I love what I do. I love painting nature. I love playing around, experiment, and I have this space to do it. And this is, I was talking earlier about when we were up in the winter studio, about the shapes and the composition. And so we were in the Camargue, just between Montpellier and Marseille, a couple of weeks ago. And the light there was incredible. And you got these salt flats with the sort of pink water and this sort of purple water. It's really amazing. And so I stretched up this canvas yesterday to try to recreate that. So I make notes and sketches that I refer to, but I work on those notes and sketches as I go along to try to create the image that I want to end up with. But I probably won't go much further than that. And then here I'm starting to use these sort of, again, these geometrical shapes, these circles that are flowing into each other like sort of figure of eights. And then the basic horizon lines, quite where the horizon will be in the end, I don't know, possibly around here somewhere. And then I use charcoal just to sort of denote where the sort of the bushy beds that run along the coast there will be. So this is about half an hour in, and it's a combination of household white emulsion and really high quality like Liquitex paint. So I find that the combination of those two things, actually, with the pigments that you get in those kind of paints, but also the ability to be able to, look, here's my spoon. The ability to be able to paint with that much paint just allows me to be much more expressive than if I were just painting on a small canvas or with a tiny paintbrush.
Exactly, yeah, because it's that's why your expressionism, it's obviously totally not photorealistic, so it's all this sort of expressionist which allows you to do that. And these sort of swirls and these circles that you're talking about, I mean, this is very much, I'd say, quite a bit of your signature style, really, isn't it? Because you get
Yeah.
You use a lot of this throughout. I see a lot of it throughout your
With
work.
the skies in particular,
Even in
yeah.
behind me with the big blue tree.
Yeah.
You definitely see a lot of it. But this is so fascinating. I mean, honestly amazing. Now, behind you, I'm assuming that if I was to do this with your trees, that's a vineyard, isn't it?
That is the vineyard. We're very lucky in Sosignac. We are surrounded. It's a tiny village, but we're surrounded by the most incredible vineyards. And this is a view out. So you have the Dordogne River. This is a valley that runs down to the Dordogne River, which is about 4 kilometers to the south of us, to the north of us, should I say. And yeah, I sit here in a lot of my paintings. There's a painting that you've got there called Vigorous Vines. And that painting actually I did earlier this year when the owners of the vineyard here planted new vines. And so they were had little green buds on them. And he put these new posts in. And I just stood there where I was showing you and looked out to this little vista that I have. And that painting came from that view, which of course is nothing like it because that painting's red and that view is green.
And that's green.
Yeah.
However, that's like you were talking about earlier. That's the whole point, going back to as well Lucy's Weeklyism, but just comparing it to that sort of 20th century art movement with the expressionist impressions. I mean, that's what they did. That's what you do. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to be what you're actually looking at. It's your interpretation and impression of it.
And I mean, although I studied history of art, I mean, I that was a long time ago, and I don't think I've ever tried to follow any sort of school. It's just something that I do, and it was very interesting for me to hear Lucy describe the style that I have and the way that I work. And as I said earlier, she was pretty much spot on, I think. So,
it was spot on. No, she was good at that. She's good at that. But I think it's fantastic, and I think that, I mean, for us, Mike, it's a real privilege to have your work. Obviously, I've got your work in Mayfair. Currently, we have them in some of our boutique galleries and across the country. So it's a real, for me, you have a real signature style. I remember when I first saw it on your sister's wall, even when it was with the polo ponies, and then saw some more. I mean, you really are quite a special artist. And we adore you.
Well, thank you.
Now you can virtually give me a glass of that rosé from the vineyard.
Yep. Well, thank you for your kind words, Ray. It's wonderful working with you guys. I love it. It's a real privilege and an honor, and it's exciting times. And it's I'm at an age where I spent a lot of time painting in my life, but it wasn't always what I did as a primary kind of job. So to be able to get to a point in life and have such a new and exciting adventure is just incredible. It's brilliant.
It is amazing.
So on this note, this is the vineyard just there, which is Chateau de Fayol, which is our fantastic neighbours. They are brilliant.
What are they called? What's the vineyard called?
The vineyard is called Fayol, Fayolle. Chateau de Fayol.
A bit of a plug.
And they make fantastic wine, and we're lucky to have them as neighbours because we just pop down on our bicycles or whatever, and it's kind of there on tap.
I love it. The next meeting, just so you know, I'm hoping actually, the next meeting will definitely be with you in Sosignac, because
please.
We literally tried to do this quite a few times now. We will get there. We absolutely will get there. Definitely. I don't know if it is possible, but I would love everyone just to meet Lee. I know he's cameraman right now, and I don't know how tricky that's going to be, Lee. If we could do a bit of a selfie.
Yeah, we can turn it up.
Oh,
there we go.
I can see you.
There's Lee.
Where is he? Oh, hello, Mr. Lee. How are you?
Hello. Very good.
Wow. Fantastic. Lee, that was brilliant camera work. We're loving it. How are you? Okay?
I'm very good now.
Yeah, I bet you are. I actually have a bottle of Bordeaux that I have, so I will be joining it. Well, what we'll do is we'll do that on the when we meet the vineyard live after this one. You should be able to
Absolutely.
find. Guys, it has been, honestly, it's a huge, huge honour. I was really excited about joining you
Yeah, us
guys
too. Thank you, Ray.
in the south of France. I've loved it. We're really looking forward to welcoming you back to Gallery. Definitely welcoming you back to London.
When we can get there
Possible.
without quarantine, yeah.
Yeah, we are. We're not far. We are far. We're here. We're open. But the great thing is, we've been allowed inside your home to have this behind-the-scenes tour to kind of get into your world, and I think it really does allow clients and us to really see that and feel it.
Yeah.
So it's been a huge honour. Like I said to the guys, this catch up with you is going to go live on our obviously Instagram live now, and it will go live on yours and across the social media platform.
Yep.
But the catalogue as well is going live. I know that's happening tonight. We've had a couple of calls already for sales, which is superb. I think it's been really interesting, really fascinating. Boys, I want to say a huge thank you. Enjoy your wine. I know you will. Enjoy your wine. We will be there to see you very, very soon, and we will be joining you next time for a bottle of wine. And thank you very, very much for joining us on the live feed.
Brilliant. Thank you, Ray. Thanks to all the team there. Thank you.
See you soon. My absolute pleasure. Take care.
Cheers, darling. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.